those stretchers for?
Something like this is probably in the $200 to $300 area. He is able to make stretchers that have a panel, and if it has a panel, it doesn't, you know, he can make them with Luan, but then they're really heavy. But he can also make them with gator foam, which is like a kind of fancy foam core type of material. And sometimes when I've needed to do something for like a building or someplace where I want it to be a little kind of more structure, have more kind of structural integrity, I'll have them with a gator foam in them.
And how long is it?
Gator foam? It's certainly strong enough to put any kind of pressure that you would put on in the making of a painting. And it's a way to keep the thing light enough to lift, you know. There's one over there. See this?
Well, that's,
So then that's flush with the surface, but when you read the edge, your eye is telling you that it's a stretched canvas. So then, and one of my problems with having panel in something or have it something on wood or etc. is because I like at least the viewer association of the tautness of the picture plane. So even if it has canvas and stretcher bars, to me that helps that reading, you know, that it's, so whether in fact there is a panel back there or not, I mean a trained eye can sometimes tell you that, but this, yeah, the side profile and everything remains the same as it would on an ordinary stretcher. And when I used to, Simon doesn't make them this way anymore. I used to get what they call strainer, which didn't have the expandable joints in them, but now he makes them all with these keys. The way I paint, because they're on cotton duck, gesso primed, I don't really have a tension issue with them. But now they're all keyed like this. So this is the same color scheme, done in a more kind of gestural, all-over pattern. Some of the paintings I was making the last year or two, I mean, I was thinking about Ryman, thinking about this sort of tradition of taking a sort of individual brush stroke as a mark, and turning it into a kind of all-over language. Again, kind of blown up into a kind of graphic language. So sort of the width of the brush determines the kind of spacing of the thing. The fact that it is, generally my paintings, I mean, they relate to monochrome paintings and so forth in that they're all over surface, usually. And if the all over surface is, so to that extent they're kind of a-compositional, where the compositional aspect of them is methodological, you know? But with something like this where it doesn't extend all the way, then it's about, you know, how an all-over surface doesn't extend all the way. And if there are little legs left at the bottom or at the sides because of the crosshatch or whatever, then that becomes a sort of language of its own, you know, which could either be read as a kind of, you know, net that's been pulled, or even these kind of antic, you know, like legs and so forth, like a, you know, like a Keith Haring drawing or something. And that way they get kind of personality that is kind of their own volition. This is another of these pressed paint ones. I made a lot of paintings with aluminum silver backgrounds. This is like, you know, like Benjamin Moore radiator paint. And in this particular studio situation where there's raking light, I'm interested in the way that kind of the light comes into them.
Yes.
And there are kind of three different readings. This is kind of the true chromatic reading of the thing. And then if you come this way, the orange silhouettes and becomes this kind of dominant figure on the ground. And if you come over this way, the silver is picking up all of that kind of gray, white, silver light of New York sky and is much more kind of, atmospheric. I've also made a lot of these paintings where I mix, in this case it's orange, which is sort of the most optical tweak off of the silver. And again, thin, so you get this kind of half-tone reading. But I've also made them in grays or very, very slight, like gray cobalt violets. And what happens with those is when you're reading it like this, it appears to be almost monochrome. But then when you get these two different sort of oblique readings, the paint suddenly reveals itself either compositionally or as a color experience. Some of these kind of like pyrotechnic little things are, I'm picking up paint and moving it and doing a kind of secondary print off of one primary panel, so that you get these little up-down symmetries and so forth. But it also, I like this kind of wet on dry. I like the way it kind of articulates the gesture in this particular way.
And then these small ones on the floor, they look like there's something you're working on right now, is that right?
Well, I make a lot of small paintings that kind of relate to the big ones. These, I'm doing these ones that have brushwork, that have actually a spray element over them. So that there's like a gold or a silver spray with this more like intense color underneath. In the case of the ones that have had the gold spray on top of this red and yellow, what happens is the yellow, the kind of tactile yellow shows through the gold, and when your eye first sees it, it looks like light falling on a gold surface, and then you realize that it's not light, it's yellow, which is sort of the artificial color of illumination that's kind of coming through the raised areas. I don't want to say it's abstract illusionism, but the spray paint kind of spatializes things in this way.
So you have aluminum braces on it or something? What are they for?
With this one, I had a painting this past year that sold to somebody who didn't think that it was going to fit up his stairs. And so I had this stretcher bar made so that I could take the painting off the stretchers. And then when he had the painting delivered to his house, it did get up the stairs. And I had a stretcher bar that then cost me $600 that had these big aluminum plates in the back. But that's not my usual MO. But it makes it look slightly more badass.
So this one goes that way?
What?
Can I help you with that? You've got that.
All right. So this one is kind of like a hybrid of these two kind of methodologies. One is the one that I previously showed you in the black and white and the orange, where there's a kind of serialized, gridded, kind of printed feel. And then in this case, the vertical kind of rivulets are poured directly onto the surface, so that you have a kind of more full-bodied, intense color over this kind of half-tone color. And it's not, this painting I had to make it flat. In some of my paintings, in general, if I can make the painting vertically, I will, because I like to have that gravitational component of the picture plane actually kind of pulling at the paint. But these paintings, because of the viscosity of the paint and the particular methodology of how they have to be made flat. I'm gonna put this one over here.
So you've been here for 15 years, Stuart?
In this space, yeah.
It's a good space, huh?
It's nice. I mean, purist painters are very particular about north light and so forth. Here you get kind of the opposite, which is this intense breaking light. And in the wintertime, in particular, because the buildings are low across the street, you'll get that winter light coming all the way through that back wall,